Okay, so today is our July 20th, sorry, July 25th, 2020 meeting of the Diamond Valley Writers Guild. I want to start with a welcome, of course, to everybody. I was wondering, do we have anybody new today that's joined us for the first time? If you do, if you raise your hand, let me know. We'd like to know. Nobody's raising his or her hand. No newbies. All right. I just want to make a quick announcement about dues and payment, and I thought Sandy is going to do that. Sandy.
Okay, am I unmuted? Can you hear me? Okay. We're in July, and if you have not renewed, it would be wonderful if you did so. It's $20. And if you haven't been or have not yet become a member, I would encourage you to do so. And you can do that by going to the Diamond Valley Writers Guild website, and if you click on the home button, then you'll see a tab that says Buy Now in the left margin. And so if you are so inclined to use PayPal, that's a quick and easy way to do it. Or you can send a check to Diamond Valley Writers Guild, P.O. Box 1154, and the zip code in Hemet is 92546. And if you want to join or pay by check and you need that address again, you can email and I will send that back to you. A reminder that members have the benefit of being able to submit to straitjackets for publication, as well as have any of your published books posted on the web, but you need to be a member to do that. So I would encourage you to either renew or join for the first time if you've just been here as a guest.
Okay, thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome.
And next I want to ask, let's see, do we have anybody from the last month have anything that you would like to tell us that's been happening in terms of writing? Have you sold anything, or have you started anything, or finished anything? Anybody have any news along those fronts? If you do, please raise your hand. I'll call on you. I'll unmute you. No? Is it that time of with our existence that we're not creating anything?
Daniel and Len are responding, and so is Tammy.
Okay, I'm not getting them.
Yeah, I don't see
And so is Valerie.
Supposed to get little hands on the participants. That's how only way I can.
Yeah, you need to click. You need to click on your raise hands. You need to click on raised hands.
It's so much more fun to do this.
I know, but I can't see that.
Okay.
See 'em.
Okay, there's Dan. All right, Dan, I just unmuted you. Or well, I asked you to unmute yourself. Okay, Dan, you're unmuted.
Welcome to my living room. Hey, yeah, all I've done is I've gone through the entire novel of Pipeline with the critique group, and actually hit the first chapter again because it's a major revision. And now I'm revising the rest of the novel. Hopefully it'll be done by the end of this year and ready for possibly a professional edit or whatever the next step is going to be. So big step because it's my first novel. Done a lot of short stories and newspaper articles and magazine articles, that kind of stuff. First novel.
Okay.
You have several.
What Dan is failing to tell you that his collaborator is on his shoulder. So, yeah.
My shredder. He's my shredder for the rejected.
Okay.
Whatever the critique group rejects, he gets to shred.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, next on the list, Ellen. Oops. What? Unmute.
I entered a writing contest, Women on Writing. It's called WOW, and I sent a chapter from my book. That was kind of exciting. And I also wanted to publicly thank Lynn Spreen for writing an absolutely amazing review about my book, Grateful for the Color Blue, on Amazon. Lynn, that was just terrific. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I haven't done it yet, Ellen. However, I would like to say to everybody who has not read Ellen's book, it is a moving, really touching book, and it's well written, and it's a terrific piece of reading. But you better, if I were you, I would suggest having some Kleenex as you read it. But it is a terrific book.
Thank you. And its title is Grateful for the Color Blue, Surviving the Loss of an Adult Child.
Okay, and Lynn, I've just unmute yourself.
You're welcome, Ellen. It was a pleasure. What a thoughtful, beautiful book. One of the best memoirs I've ever read. The thing that I'm excited about, aside from the fact that I'm not cranking out, but I'm eking out short stories. You all know my situation, and I'm confused a lot of the time because I have caregiving responsibilities that seem to take most of my attention. So for me to break through that and be able to go back to the old Lynn and write some stories just makes me feel like, you know, there's an adjustment period and then you get back to yourself. So I'm thrilled about that. But the other thing is about business. I'm thrilled about something I did in the business realm. For the longest time, I've been reading that you're supposed to have, you know, a vibrant mailing list. And I have about 350 people on my list. Probably about 10 of those would buy my books if I ask them to. You know, I don't know what good a quality my subscribers are, but I'm joking a little bit. But what you're supposed to do to try to bring people into your mailing list is to have, you know, something on your website that says sign up for my mailing list, but also a little lure, a little bit of bait, you know, something to offer them, a gift for signing up. And the best thing to offer them is something that demonstrates your writing, because then they're interested in you. If they read your stuff and they unsubscribe, that's a good way of them filtering it out. So for the longest time, I had wanted to write a short story and use it as a gift to entice people to sign up for my mailing list. And then there's a series of autoresponder emails that are, you know, they click on, they give you their email address, and then they click send, and a series of automatic emails are sent to them to reinforce that this is where they want to be and that they're happy about their decision, which every step of that enhances the quality of your mailing list and makes your subscribers more likely to buy your books and stay with you for the long haul. So I just, as of this morning, my 5-step autoresponder sequence has been finalized, and it's on my website now, and I'm just so happy about it. So that's a little geeking out on the business end for you, but I'm proud of it. The end.
All right. Great, Lynn. Thank you. That was great. I've heard often that the giveaway is a great way to go, whether it's a short story or whatever. Okay, anybody else have anything else that you've completed or anything? No? All right. Well,
wait, Valerie.
Oh, Valerie, I'm not her.
You're down far enough.
No, but it should show up at the top. See,
He's got to click that hand.
Yeah, I got. No, I do. I know. I didn't.
See, you didn't go down far.
Yeah, let me get to Valerie somewhere here. Oh, there's Michelle. I got Michelle's hand raised. There, Valerie, there we go. All right.
Am I there?
Yeah, you're there, Valerie.
Okay, I see my tiny screen all lit up. I'd like to welcome anyone who wants to write every single week to come to the Interrobangs on Interrobang Zoom. And Mike Buckley, who's a member of Diamond Valley Writers Guild, has just published a book. It's called The Bloody Padre. You can get it on Amazon. And Bob White has also published another book in his detective story. So even though it's summertime, and a lot of people used to be gone, we're still up and running every single week, first 3 hours of Tuesday morning, 9 to noon.
All right, great, Valerie. I also have here a little notice from George, who says he's 44K words into writing his Wang #6. So he's producing. Michelle, you have something to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm very excited that I actually finished a short story, because I don't write short, and those of you who know me know that. So I write screenplays and I write full-length fiction, but I pushed myself and wrote a short story, and I was very happy that I did. So that was my accomplishment in the last 30 days, was to write a short story.
All right. You know, for me, personally, I love short stories, and I think writing them is in many ways harder than writing a novel, because you have to be much more careful with the use of words. Okay, Karen, you have something.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I can see you also.
Well, I've always written for magazines and newspapers, and this time I'm writing my sequel to my second novel. The first novel was on my own. This time I hired Kathy Macias, that came and spoke to us several months ago, to go through the book with me, and I am discovering how much I didn't know. And so, I mean, it's been a real education. It's terrifying, but it's a good, I mean, I can see how I needed an editor for sure.
All right. Well, one of the things I've found, everybody needs an editor. It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, whether you're Joyce Carol Oates or Ernest Hemingway or anybody, everybody needs an editor sooner or later. I mean, and once you're finished writing, you need some kind of help. I remember the old story about Thomas Wolfe writing his first novel, and it was Look Homeward Angel, which became one of the all-time American classics. And he wrote it on these big ledger books. And when we brought it into the publisher, he just laid 7 of these big ledger books on the desk. Fortunately, I think it was Scott Meredith was the editor. I can't remember for sure, but he went through and edited, and the book was would have been like 200,000, 250,000 words long, and he cut it down to about 120, and it's a great book. They published the uncut version, and it is terrible, just terrible. So we all need editing. Okay, anybody else have anything else you'd like to say? No. In that case, then I think we'll move on to the next item, and that is Cheryl with Straitjackets.
Tammy had something to say.
Oh, Tammy?
Mm-hmm.
Tammy, where are you? Just unmute yourself, Tammy.
Oh, I don't know how to raise my hand in Zoom. I like it as a thumbs up and a.
That's okay. That's all right.
Well, I lost my job due to COVID, so I am now spending my unemployment time working on the 3rd book of my sci-fi trilogy. So I'm taking a Writer's Digest class, and it's pretty grueling. I thought 2,500 words a week would be a breeze, and it's not at all for me. It's very, very tough. So I'm actually even not working, barely squeezing that out every week. So I'm getting there, though. I'm almost done with the class.
Okay. Do you know that Hemingway wrote only 500 words a day? That's all he did. And he would write from 8 to 12, and he would do 500 words a day. And once there, he just quit, and that would be it for the day.
I'm slower than that.
All right. Well, it's, the thing about writing is that writing is not easy. It's always been hard, and it should be. Writing shouldn't be easy. If you want to do it well, you have to make it. You have to really work at it. That's one of the things you're doing. So that's great. Kathleen, you have something.
Hi. I want to thank Michelle again for inviting me. This is the second time I've been with you guys, and you're such a wonderful group. But I've been working with an editor who is also coaching me, because when I was on before, I told you I didn't really start writing until December, and I'd had no literary schooling, so to speak. And so she's been taking me in hand, and we took my first book, and instead of a book, it's going to be a trilogy. And so we've been working on that, and I've also discovered the need to know how to write short stories. So I've been working on both ends, the long end and the short end, in the last month to 6 weeks, and it's been wonderful. There's a lot of contests out there for short stories, which give you timetables. Like one story I had to write was exactly 300 words, and it had to be about red lipstick.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of compliments from other writers. I didn't win anything, but I did get compliments and well dones. And then the next one was, it had to be something about it didn't work. And so I wrote about a bungling burglar. So, but it's been a fun exploration and learning curve for me. And I just thank you for letting me join you again.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I go back to Hemingway for a second. What he said about writing. He said, writing is a craft we're forever learning. And I think that's very true. Anybody else have any last thing? Well, if not, I'm going to move on then to Cheryl and straitjackets.
Okay, so here's where we are. I just want to clue you in. The editors team met yesterday and put in 6 hours, and maybe we got halfway through, I'm not sure. We're going to meet again on next Tuesday, and then I will be sending out your pieces back to you with red edits. And those are suggestions. And then I look forward to you responding, yes, that's great, or whatever. And my email is I put it in the chat. So you can respond directly back, but my email, you can send submissions to me also at my email whenever you feel like it, because I collect them for the next issue. And it's a very direct way to get to me, because I'm the one that's putting the chart together, and I send out all your submissions to the other editors. So that's one thing. So we're looking at the magazine being published in the next 2 to 2.5 weeks. And then we'll send out a notice when it does get done. I'd like to ask Sandy if she could, and I don't know what your frequency wants to be, Sandy, but from what I understand, you're in charge of the membership list. Okay. Because I want to make sure that we are publishing active members, and I don't know who that is. Sometimes I'm aware of members that, yeah, go ahead.
Sandy?
I'm unmute. There we go.
There we
was
go.
muted. I this week went through every single sheet of information I had about memberships. So I have updated the membership, and so to the best of my knowledge right now, if you go on Diamond Valley in the Google page, and on the side there will be members, and then there's a group for interested in the guild. So the membership one is current as of day before yesterday, and I have not seen anything else come in. And I
Okay, and
checked
is
just
that
before.
and can I access that list? Because I've tried to, the code that I was given doesn't get me into the inner stuff of Diamond Valleys. I don't know, it's been changed a couple times, but I don't need to be there. But will I be able to just as a tourist go on and see that?
I don't know. That
Okay.
might be a Lynn question.
A Lynn question? Okay.
Lynn question.
Okay.
This is kind of like in the weeds. Probably the rest of everybody doesn't want to hear it, but what Sandy's talking about is going into the Diamond Valley Gmail account and looking at a list.
I can't get in there.
Okay,
Lynn.
Sandy maybe could email you the code.
Okay.
The password.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, that's a
bye.
possibility.
Okay, great.
Is that it? You want anything
Well,
else?
I think that's it, Lynn. Or Ellen, I mean, can you think, is there anything else you want to add there?
No, that's it. Just that we had really a lot of fun. 6 hours seems like a long time, but it flew by reading your work, and I'm excited for the next 6-hour session.
Yeah. We stick at it, man. We enjoy it. So thank you for participating.
All right. Great. If at this spot, I'd like to call on Howard to talk just briefly about the July, about the August meeting.
Okay. Goo, 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 goo. I discovered on YouTube that if I want to improve my singing voice, I should say goo, 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 and it will improve my singing voice. So there's a little tip for you. And it works. It really does. And I'm very excited about our August session, our poetry event. We've already had more than a half a dozen people signed up. So if you're a poet and wants to be heard, let me know, and you'll be on the list. And it should be a very wonderful session. I always enjoy hearing the poets in this area. And I always like to say that Riverside County has the highest concentration of excellent poets probably in the United States. And there's so many people interested in writing poetry. And my email, I listed on the chat. And let me just hold up the sign since I took a little time to make it this morning. Well,
Flip down right there now.
Right there.
Right there. Hold it right there, Howard.
okay. Feigenbaum, just like it sounds, Feigenbaum at sbcglobal.net. And you know that song that they sing at Christmas time, oh Feigenbaum, oh Feigenbaum. So you can, it's just like it sounds. So send me your poetry. You can have a couple of poems, and the audience is always very generous to to poets. So if you're a little shy, don't worry about that. I always say poetry is perfect. So whatever you write, it's a unique creation, and it's your creation, and the world is ready to hear it. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Howard. Yeah, I always look forward to August meeting. It'll be fun. Okay, at this spot, we are
Valerie is waving.
Oh, Valerie, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Valerie. Yeah, the
Unmute, Valerie.
yeah,
Down here. Okay.
there you go.
I'd like to add to what Howard said that August is Poetry Month everywhere. And in particular, August 2020 is Lizard Month. So if you'd like to write poetry about lizards, and maybe I'll submit 3 of them to our magazine. That would be wonderful.
All right. Well, we'll keep that in mind. I can't see writing a lizard poem at the moment, but it'll grow on me, I'm sure. Thanks, Valerie. Okay. All right. We are now moving to our speaker and presenter for today, Michelle. For those of you who don't know Michelle, I must tell you, Michelle is terrific. She's in our Wednesday's reading critique group. She is outstanding at critique. She's written a novel that she's sending around now. She read in our group, which is terrific. I'm not a big fantasy fan, but it's a fantasy novel, and she did a great job with it. I thought her lead character and her subordinate characters were all terrific. Moves well. She's really a fine novel she's got there, and I'm sure she'll find a market for it soon. But with that, Michelle, it's all yours.
Okay, so how is everybody today? Can you hear me all right?
Yes,
Everybody
but you're
nods.
breaking up a
You're
bit
breaking up.
and freezing.
I'm sorry for the confusion on this. I'm going to try to do my share screen, get that going. Okay, bear with me just for a second. Okay, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Everybody can nod? Everybody can see the screen okay? Okay, good. Well, hello everybody. And as I said, hopefully, I won't lose you in the middle. Internet in the mountains is a little bit iffy. It was good all morning up until just about the time that Jim was ready to introduce me, of course. So today we're going to be talking about the all-important story opening, and you'll all have a chance.
Yeah.
She's frozen again.
You're frozen.
Well, so when we're talking about story openings, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, fine. You're back.
But she's frozen again.
Oh no, am I in and out? That's not going to be fun. Shoot.
It's frozen.
So when you're deciding where to start, when our editors and agents are notorious for putting something down and continue to read it. So when you're talking about the elements of a good story starter, what are some effective opening qualities, or I should say things that it should contain? And it should, first off, your opening should pose a narrative question. It should also establish a dilemma of some sort and inspire curiosity for the ones to be effective. There's also several other things that you can include that would imply more of an element to the beginning of the story, such as mood, voice, character, POV, and setting. So right into the first
Michelle, we
I've
can't hear.
had parts of it down all over the house to read me something he read because he thought it was great. So, did I lose you?
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Can you see a picture?
Yeah, see the picture. Your voice is breaking up a lot. We're missing it.
All right. I may have to sacrifice visual by going back inside because maybe the internet is just bad here. Hang on with me for a second. Sorry about this, guys.
I wish to tell everyone we tried this out yesterday from where she was and it worked fine. So,
Of course.
You know, Jim and Vicki, it really works. It helps that she has the PowerPoint presentation because, you know, her words aren't as critical as, you know, her just pointing out what's on the PowerPoint. So I think we can muck along, but
yeah, no, we can.
Yeah.
I agree with you. We can. It's just that yesterday when we did this, it all worked fine. And she did it from that area. Everything was fine. We tried it out. So.
Okay, I'm almost back. Hold on, guys.
All right.
In my experience with Zoom meetings, it helps if everyone goes to mute except the speaker.
I've got it on mute for everybody.
Okay.
but some people have unmuted.
Okay, so you won't be able to see me as well as you could, but can you hear me better?
Yes.
Yes, better, much better.
Okay. Like I said, mountains are a little bit iffy. Okay, so let me go back. Sorry, it went forward without me, didn't it? Okay, back to Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So the first sentence, first of all, let me get something straight. This is a journal, not a diary, by Jeff Kenny. So let's talk about that. Does anyone have any feedback as to whether they think that is or is not a good opening sentence when you look at the should haves and the good to implies? Anybody? Jim, do you have any hands?
No, nobody's saying anything.
Okay. Well, when I was analyzing this particular opening, I was looking at the fact that it inspires curiosity, because when you have somebody who is saying something so strong, so forward motion on their point of view, and as far as the implied, the things that you want to imply, I think that there's voice, character, and POV shining through that. You obviously have of someone who's very opinionated. So I think that that voice comes through. Point of view, it's somebody who is very sincere about wanting people to realize he's not keeping a diary. You don't know if it's a boy or a girl. Would you consider that a good opening or a great opening? Anybody?
Okay, there's Lynn.
It would keep me reading.
I would are you calling on me?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would consider it a pretty good opening because right away there's a sort of a controversy. The title is Diary, but the narrator right away is saying this isn't a diary. So it's like an kind of not an aggressive, but an assertive voice, which sounds good to me. And then there's just a whiff of, well, why are you saying that right in the very beginning? Why did you entitle the book that way? So it's intriguing. It's got a lot of attitude to it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll throw in my 2 cents worth here. It's okay. Lynn says assertive. I would say in this case, if he calls it Diary of a Wimpy Kid and says this isn't a diary, it's a journal, he seems to me to be in that area of undecided. He can't, yeah, okay, he says this, but he names it something else. He seems to me. So I think there is a clue to his character in the first sentence.
So maybe he's a little bit self-conscious about keeping his thoughts in something called a diary, because that's a girl thing.
Yeah.
I think that's probably, and as you read through it, if you've ever read this, you know, it's a middle schooler, and that's a time in your life when you're trying to figure out who you are and how you fit in, and you start becoming aware of the opposite sex, or, you know, sometimes same sex, whoever your attraction level is with. And so I think it's a developmental point. And at some point there, that journal, being a journal instead of a diary, was very important. So I agree with everything Lynn and Jim said. Does anybody else have any feedback on that?
Yeah, I think he's being wimpy.
I think he's trying to be assertive, though.
Yeah, in a wimpy sort of way.
He poses a narrative question.
And what do you think the narrative question is?
Well, first off, for a kid in middle school, and for me, I found myself thinking, what do you mean a journal, you know, it is a journal, not a diary? And I found myself mulling over the definitions of those 2 words. So then I thought, well, okay, so thinking from his point of view, understanding your point about this is a middle schooler and diaries are for girls, but still, I just found himself posing a question and raising my curiosity about where he's going, where he's coming from, and where he's going with this. It would keep me reading.
That's the question. Would it keep you reading? And Cheryl
Yes.
said it would definitely keep her reading.
Yeah.
Good. So let's talk about, we just went through the should haves and the good to implies. And so we've agreed that this is a good opening, but would you really consider it a great opening? I personally don't. I think it's a good opening. And I think it's a good opening for the readership, being that kind of middle grade reader. But is it a great opening? And so there's some certain qualities that I found and through research and my own personal reading that sets apart a great opening from just a good opening. And so those most powerful openings do share three qualities, and usually all three are present in those first sentence or two. They're usually unusual, evocative, and incident-based. So the Diary of a Wimpy Kid example really wasn't incident-based. It was unusual and evocative, but it was kind of missing the incident base because there wasn't something actually happening. So let's go on to a classic. I love this story. How many have ever read, it's probably a kind of a rhetorical question, but how many of you have ever read Charlotte's Web? It's a 1952 children's masterpiece. And where's Papa going with that axe? Anybody want to weigh in on whether that meets the unusual, evocative, and incident-based criteria? Anybody? Anybody? Can somebody unmute? There's Cheryl. Okay, there she is.
Okay, Cheryl, do you want to say something?
No, I was just weighing in. I don't know how to weigh in. I raised my hand and did the thumbs up, so then I had to just unmute and blabber.
Just unmute. That's
yeah,
fine.
that's
all
fine.
right.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Go, Lynn?
Well, obviously, she's carrying, I don't see the picture now, but she's got, what, it was a pig in her hand? Yeah, a little pig in her hand. Look at the faces of the lamb and the pig and the little girl. And the minute you go on a farm, where's Papa going with that axe? You know what that means, you know? And so that's very evocative and for a child, worrisome. Anyway, which pet of mine am I going to lose today? You know.
What about you, Lynn?
Well, that was pretty much what I was going to say. It's evocative. It evokes a sense of dread.
And it's incident-based,
fear.
is it not? Incident-based as well. Something is happening. There's something
Yes.
happening. Okay, good. Now, what about the should-haves and the, good to implies? So we've got the should-haves and the good to implies. How do those relate? Is there a narrative question? Does it establish a dilemma and inspire curiosity? Does everyone pretty much agree that those are all present in this particular first sentence? Now, what about those good to implies? Are all of them there? Is mood there? I think so. Yeah. It's a mood of a little bit of maybe minor dread or trepidation of some sort. And then you've got a voice. It's a definite, strong voice. Character, we actually have 3 characters in the scene. In one sentence. Do you know who the 3 characters are in that sentence? Anybody want to weigh in on that one? Nope. Well, you got Papa.
Yeah. Go ahead. You go ahead. You're going there.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, well, you've got the child and you've got Papa, and I don't know if you can count the pig. I mean, is that a character in that scene?
No. Think about the sentence.
Where is Papa going with that? Well, the axe is a character.
Actually, the person she's talking to, there's a third person in that scene we haven't been introduced to yet.
Okay, see, I didn't know that. As far as I'm concerned, she was talking to herself.
Well, anyway, it's one way to look at it. But the only thing that's really lacking, there's definitely a point of view there of this character voice. The setting, there isn't really a setting. We don't know it's on a farm necessarily by the first sentence. So let's go on to a couple other examples because I want to dive.
Dennis had something to say there.
Oh, who did?
Dennis.
Perfect. Go ahead, Dennis.
Dennis?
Same thing. Already been said.
Oh, already been said.
Someone beat Dennis to it.
Okay.
As far as mood, I think it raises curiosity. Papa, where are you going with that axe? And so it's curiosity from her point of view. But when we are looking at what she's holding and what the picture is, in the reader, it raises some concern or unhappiness because you have, as the reader, you get the picture that probably the pig is going to be slaughtered.
Right. Now keep in mind, it's the first sentence of the novel. You've never seen this novel before. You don't know it's about a pig yet. It's first sentence. So
But she is holding, the picture means something. She's holding
okay.
a pig.
Okay.
And there's a lamb, which that picture tells me, of course, I grew up in farming country, so that told me right away it is farm. And the axe means that the pig is going to be killed.
Right. That's because you looked at the cover of the book before you opened and read the first sentence. And you're right. That probably was the cover. So you're saying it has all three should haves. It inspires curiosity, establishes a dilemma, and poses a narrative question of what's going to happen. Where is he going with that axe? In fact, it's a question. So it automatically has a narrative question at the beginning in the mood. Okay, great. Let's go on to some without pictures so that we could just rely on words. Okay, this is from Harlan Coben's 2019 domestic thriller, Runaway. The opening sentence is, Simon sat on a bench in Central Park, in Strawberry Fields to be more precise, and felt his heart shatter. So let's look at this. Does it share all of the qualities? Is it unusual, evocative, and incident-based? Anybody? You can just nod if you agree. That's fine too. If you don't agree, raise your hand. Something is happening.
Lynn has something. Lynn?
Sure.
No, I just wanted to say that for me, it's I can't go back and look at the statement, so it's hard to kind of, assess. I don't want you to think we're not interested, but I think we only can see one screen at a time. So like we go back to that because you showed it to us. That's a little bit of a difficulty in answering the questions. So I didn't want you to take it as a lack of enthusiasm.
Well, I'm kind of in a void here anyway because I can't see all of you. I can only see like Cheryl and Sandy and Jim.
Yeah.
So, but there it is if you want to look at it again. So with the qualities are unusual, evocative, and incident-based. So looking at that first sentence, does it hit all three of those marks?
It's not unusual. It's incident-based. It's evocative.
Okay, so you think it's got two of the three?
Yeah, for me.
Okay, now let's go on and see the rest of the opening because I wanted to show you the entire opening to see if they hit everything because I agree with you, Lynn. I think that they missed part of it. So here is the entire opening. Simon sat on a bench in Central Park in Strawberry Fields, to be more precise, and felt his heart shatter. No one could tell, of course, at least not at first, not until the punches started flying and two tourists from Finland, of all places, started screaming while 9 other park visitors from a wide variety of countries caught the whole horrible incident on smartphone video. But that was still an hour away.
Yeah, so, definitely unusual.
So the question is, does it hit everything? We know it hit now all three of the qualities, but does it pose narrative questions? What do you guys think?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And it probably implies just about everything in that list of mood, voice, character, and point of view. They even get the setting in there. It's not much, but they get a little bit of setting. Anybody else want to say anything about that?
And there's a juxtaposition of Strawberry Fields has the feeling of very calm and very comfortable, but his heart is shattered and it goes into a fight. So it inspires curiosity for me.
So the biggest question is, if you started reading, would you continue reading that book?
Definitely.
Probably.
Yeah, I think I've never read the book, but it's compelling. Probably if I ran across it, I would pick it up and read it at that point. Okay, let's look at another one. They were in one of the I states when Zeke told Isaac he had to ride in the trunk for a little while. Laura Lippman's 2004 novel, By a Spider's Thread. I love that one.
Hello?
So how about this one? Is it unusual, evocative, and incident-based?
Yeah.
What do you think? Yeah, there's an incident happening. It's in one of the I states. We're not sure exactly where.
Dan would like to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried raising my hand electronically and yelling and waving.
Oh.
Okay.
Sorry, Dan.
Now that's my fault, Dan. I'm trying to see here. Okay.
Well, I'm trying to figure how to work with it because I was on mute and full screen, and I had to figure out a way to see the unmute and where to raise my hand and stuff. So I got that sorted out, but it just took me a while. So whatever works, I just need to know what to do. So as far as the previous one, I really didn't like it. I thought it was kind of a clunky sentence to try to jam a whole lot of things in one thing, you know, with the Finland and 9 people and phones and a fight. You know, his heart exploded, but there was a fight, and I don't know. No, it didn't draw me in. This one kind of does in an intellectual sense. They were in one of the I states. I don't even know what that is. So, okay, that's something to think about. When Zeke told Isaac he had to ride in the trunk for a little while, okay, so now I guess they're traveling and they want to hide Isaac for some reason, or maybe they're going to do something they don't want him to see. Maybe they're, you know, brothers or something like that. So that intrigues me a little bit. That brings me in that way.
Okay, good. Anyone else want to say something about either of the 2 examples?
Well, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so when we're going along.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to mute you. Cheryl.
I got it.
Okay.
Okay, the titles are there. And so the first thing I do is read this sentence and I go, wow, you know, who wants to ride in the trunk and what on earth? And then I go down and I read the title. So is that fair? Because By a Spider's Thread has its own intrigue that would definitely cause me to hit that first sentence. The title would get me there. I'd hit that first sentence and I'd want to go on. But is that a fair thing for what you're trying to teach us here or not?
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. I think a title is incredibly important. People don't usually buy a book unless the title grabs them.
Yeah.
That's what gets you to open the book. So that's very valid, I think. Anyone else want to speak to that?
Okay. I'm unmuted. I had to agree with whoever was speaking before Cheryl that I don't know if there's any rule against brevity for opening lines, but I felt the other one was too long and too complex, whereas this one is you know, short and easy to grasp. But the other one also confused me, and I don't think I would read the book, continue reading. I might just to try to unsort everything they had in it, but I don't know what anybody else thinks if an opening line should be short or not.
I had a comment also about the sitting in the park and strawberry fields, and I think an opening line needs to be careful about the locations. As soon as I saw strawberry fields, I immediately went to the Beatles song, and it pulled me away from the story, or it pulled me away from the scene. So I think one needs to be careful about the locations or things that might be distracting.
Okay.
Okay. Lynn? Oh, Lynette, I'm sorry. No.
Yeah, this is Catherine. Personally, with the first example, I was intrigued a little bit about why in the world he would be punching people, but I wasn't really drawn in by that but that was still an hour away, because that kind of explaining all those things before they actually happen kind of drew me in. So that was.
Did you feel tricked when you got to that line?
A little bit, yeah. It was kind of like you were pulling the wool over my eyes on what was going on at the time. So.
But you know, to go along with your comment, you know, I did talk about the tourists that witnessed the whole horrible event. So there's foreshadowing that something gross is going to happen, whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that led into that last line, but that was an hour away. So there's enough intrigue in my bizarre mind to get me to wonder a little bit. If the next few paragraphs or pages didn't do it, I might not stick. But
okay, I'll jump in on this also.
Turn on the light.
One of the things about the other quote, well, before this one, and this one too for that matter, is I know both authors. I mean, I've read, not personally, but I've read them. And so the Harlan Coben would be an intricate book. It's a thriller, and his plots are often very intricate. And the same with Laura Lippman, and which is the Laura Lippman one has a sense of humor about it, but in a sense, so does the Harlan Coben. There's a sense of humor, the way he sets that up. And so in many cases, in something like this, knowing the author's previous works, I think also affects how you start a book. You know, if I pick another book by Harlan Coben, does that sound interesting? Does it sound like one of his books is going to be? And I'd say yes. Laura Lippman the same way. She writes mysteries also. The same thing. If I like the author, then that opening's probably going to be fine for me. Although I agree with Ellen, the moment I saw Strawberry Fields, it took me to the Beatles. But I'll tell you, I bet you that has something to do with this story.
It probably does. Knowing Harlan Coben, it probably does.
Yeah, it has something to do with the story, and he's playing on that. So
right.
Yeah, so that would be my response to that.
Now, also keep in mind, it wasn't quite fair because this is 3 sentences. People saying, well, it's a lot in the opening sentence. Keep in mind, this is the opening paragraph and into the next paragraph. And I did that on purpose to get to the fact that it was a little bit of a trick. And you can get away with that sometimes. You got to be really careful. And that's going to actually, does anyone have any more to add before I move on? Because my next point moves on. Okay. The next point is the fact that,
no, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, is that you got to be really careful in openings to not put too much in or to trick or shock the reader unless it's relevant to the narrative question, and that's huge. So let's see here. Let me go to this. There. What not to do in your openings. Anybody have any? Before I go to some of the ones I've written down. Anybody have an idea of what you think you should not do in an opening? Anybody?
Weather.
Weather.
Waking up,
okay.
Waking up from a nap or from sleep.
Yeah, that's a biggie. Waking up is usually a biggie. Those are kind of like how not to start a story for the most part. Most people think. Anybody else?
A big information dump.
Okay, go ahead, Sandy. I'm sorry.
A big information dump.
Okay.
Is not a good way to open, or someone describing themselves looking in a mirror.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another no.
Yes, Dan.
Yeah, don't give away the ending.
Everybody hear that?
No, I missed it. What did you say?
Don't give away the ending.
Don't give. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
By the way, I've got Sandy. If you can turn your sound down, it's really splattering. So if you can turn your volume of your microphone down, that would help.
Where she's sitting.
Okay. Let's see. Dennis, you had something.
No, it's already been. Well, I was going to say about sleep rise into an alarm clock, but I think somebody's already mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and so yeah, sentences that here's a big no-no. Sentences that the sole purpose is to shock your reader without it having anything really to do with where you're going with the book or the narrative question. So for example, you don't want to open with the earth exploded. I mean, that's a way to catch attention, the earth exploded, but unless it actually did, or there's some major significant plot reason or character reason for that to be there, you're just strictly gonna, your audience is gonna feel tricked. And that sort of also happens when you suddenly realize that it may be a flash forward or a flashback. The other thing was, of course, it's a dream. When you do a shock opening, someone gets murdered and then, oh, it was just a dream. Most of the time, that's a huge no-no as well. And then you guys covered a lot of the other ones. So a sentence with the sole purpose of shocking you. Too much detailed setting, which goes in with what Jim said about the weather. Weather is setting. But just in general, too much setting in your opening slows down your pace and isn't necessary. And the last biggie is needless backstory. A lot of people put, and I think Sandy mentioned that. So if we're looking at our first two examples. Let's look at the first one from Harlan Coben. How much of those three, but first off, was it a shock that wasn't relevant to the plot? No. There was a little bit of a trick there. But how much true setting is involved in this opening? Not much, right? He places you in New York City. You know it's pretty modern day because there's a smartphone involved. But other than that, is there anybody else who want to weigh in on that one? No?
Oh, Dan?
Yeah, it is just 2 sentences as far as I read, unless my eyes are failing. And, you know, and there's the heart shattering, and you say that that's relevant because you read the book. So, but to me, that's what I thought of when you said the earth exploding. That's a pretty major thing. That's, if it's physical, if it's really happening, the guy's dead. If it's not physical, then it's still an earth-shaking moment for him. And, you know, maybe it's too much for the beginning. I don't know.
And it might be.
And this is, of course, my taste, so I don't know, but it makes me ponder. But that is a lot for 2 sentences to me.
And so the question is his heart shattering physical or metaphorical? Did he just get shot in the heart by a sniper? Or did his heart shatter because he saw his wife with another man? I don't know. I've not read the book. I'm just throwing out ideas. We don't know whether it is metaphorical or an actual, but since suddenly people are fighting and people are catching the horrible incident on smartphone, I'm kind of leaning toward, has anybody read this book? I have not.
You know,
I read
this is
Harlan Coben.
another thing. In the same paragraph, it's a complete shift of focus from him. It starts with Simon, and then it's got all the punches and some people. How does he know they're from Finland? Do they have a big sign on them or something? I don't know. The more I analyze this thing, the less I like it.
So let's stick to the things that don't work real quick. So we know that there's very little setting. How about backstory? Is there any backstory in this at all? No, there really isn't. So if from that viewpoint, from sticking to the things you don't want to include, he kept his setting to a minimal and put absolutely no backstory. Now, what about this one, which everyone seems to like better, obviously? Setting and backstory. Is there any backstory in this at all?
Well, wasn't there a backstory in the fact that he said that was, what did it say? That was, what was the last line in that other one that you just?
Oh, that wasn't going to happen for another hour, basically.
Right. Isn't that kind of isn't that whole thing a backstory?
No, it's a glimpse into what's going to happen in the future. So it's not backstory. Backstory is something that happened in the past. And usually it's things that relate to the character or things that happened to the character previously that aren't in this book. So I think that was definitely an incident that was happening an hour from now in this same book. So I don't think it's backstory. Anybody else have an opinion on that?
Yeah.
But look at this one. Does this one have setting? What's the setting? Anybody?
They're in a car. They're in a car.
And they're driving.
Yeah.
In one of the ice states. So the setting is here.
A road trip.
Yeah, it implies quite a bit, it implies incident as well, but this does have some setting, but doesn't have any backstory whatsoever.
Okay, Sandy.
I have a question. Wouldn't it be backstory if it is they were in one of the ice states? So how'd they get there and some of that implied or whatever?
Anybody want to answer that?
I think so.
So you think that this is backstory?
Well, it implies some things. It implies a relationship between the characters, and it implies that they've been traveling for a while because they got to another state beginning with an I. So
it implies character and relationship, but it doesn't have any backstory that I see. Because backstory is usually an info dump that is details of past occurrences, and it usually overburdens the opening with non-action related information. And it's what Sandy said earlier about info dumps. It's when you stick in that they were in one of the ice states, which was a different ice state than they were in last year when they went to, you know, Idaho or whatever, that would be backstory, because now you're talking about something that happened in the past. So I don't think the past tense were throws it into backstory. Does anybody else have an opinion?
Thank you.
Yeah. Who said that?
Dennis.
Dennis, did you say that?
I just thought, no, I thought that was good explanation of the distinction.
Okay.
Tammy? Did you have something, Tammy?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I said I thought that was a good distinction there that we were
So
able.
that kind of covered the were not being backstory?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
one other thing I'd like to add here is that any statement like this is going to be, there's going to be information that's implied, but it's not backstory. But what's implied? Well, they're in a car. It's implied that they're coming from a state that's not an I state. It's not Indiana or Idaho. It's coming from another state. There's at least 2 people in the car. And so all I'm saying is there are certain things that are implied, but it's not backstory. It's just information that's implied.
And actually, if you look at this sentence, there's a huge amount of information packed into one sentence. I think this is a really good opening sentence for a variety of reasons. Does anyone have an idea as to why they would think it's a good or a bad one? Would like to express an opinion? No? Anything else? We'll move on if not.
I don't really have something as to that, but I just realized the fact that they were in one of the I states. The I states aren't exactly next to each other all the time. So
Right.
it implies that either they don't know where they are or they don't want the reader to know where they are.
Right. Or the narrator doesn't really know the difference. He confuses or she confuses Iowa and Indiana and Idaho and keep going. So I think it has an amusing kind of a humorous touch to it if you look at it in that viewpoint too. The person doesn't even know where they're at.
It's funny because I inferred from that they were kids playing some kind of game about what state starts with, and then building on something from there, like they have to think of other words that start.
And it could be, it could be children. I've not read the book.
There's another possibility. The I state might not necessarily be a physical state, but it could be a psychological state. And that's what you can have a master's in psychology. You look
Shit shows.
That's funny. Okay, well, let's go into a couple more examples before we turn it over to you guys sharing. So here's one. Prologue, Paris. They will be looking for me by now. And that's from The Orphan's Tale, 2017 historical romance by Pam Jenoff. So let's look at this. It's 7 words, 9 if you count the words prologue and Paris. So what do you guys think?
Oh, it's
powerful?
intriguing. It's very intriguing because who's on the run and who's she running from? I don't even know if it's a her, but somebody's running from somebody and she's in danger right now.
So you think it contains all 3 of the qualities that we talked about before?
It's very intriguing, yeah.
Unusual, evocative, and incident-based. It's an incident because someone's looking for her.
Yeah, I do think so. Yeah, all 3.
It immediately makes you want to know more immediately.
Okay. How about
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I find it interesting what Lynn and Karen are saying, because I don't know if it's the word prologue Paris, but this sentence leaves me completely cold. And I'm hearing what they're saying, and I say, yeah, that's true. They'll be looking for me by now, but there's something in the setup. I don't know if it's the prologue Paris that turns me off, or like if that wasn't there, I might be more intrigued. But prologue Paris feels too formal, or something turns me off by this, and I can't pinpoint it. I don't know. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's fine.
It's the word prologue.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Paris. I mean, I none of that. I don't need any of that information at this point. They will be looking for me by now. Grabs my own imagination and draws me in. When you give me prologue Paris, those 2 simple words, they're too formal for me. They're too formal, and I don't want to know that yet. I just don't-
So if you didn't see Prologue in Paris, the line would be good for you.
Yes, isn't that
You
weird?
know, another thing too is the orphan's tale. Immediately I thought, well, this must be the orphan, and the orphan must have run away.
Again, I've not read the book, so I can't tell you, but it's a historical romance. So, you know, what's interesting is chances are you'd be, you know, the type of reader, Cheryl, that wouldn't even see Prologue in Paris because that's at the top of the page probably, or in the middle before you hit that first sentence. So it may be an invisible thing for you. I included it because that's what it was included when I was researching, you know, pretty famous first sentences. But it might be, you know, like you normally read chapter 1. I don't know. Some people skim right past that and just start with the first sentence.
Well, I'm like Sandy. I read every single word everywhere.
Me too. Me too. So does this ask a strong narrative question? Because, you know, on our should haves, does it have that strong narrative question? Will
Not
you know,
for me. I don't know.
It's not. Okay.
Dietz, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I did. I think if there'd been some space between Prologue and Paris, it would have made a difference. And then also, I think if under Paris, they would have put the date that this happened, that might have been more intriguing to me.
Okay. Do keep in mind the spacing is probably mine. I didn't put a space between.
I think
but
so.
I typed
This
it.
is a prologue, and she's just putting the place, which to me, they'll be looking for me by now. By the fact that it was in Paris, that added more intrigue to me. Especially if they put the year that this had happened, that would have helped me more.
Okay. Now, what about our good to imply, the mood, voice, character, point of view, and setting? Does it have any of those 5 elements in there? Mood. Anybody?
Not for me. No mood at all for me.
I think it does have, for me, a sense of trepidation, and it's foreboding.
She's on the run, right?
See, but it could be, because when you say they will be looking for me by now, there's a lot of places that could go. Certainly they could be in danger from the person looking from them, but it could also be, especially since it's the orphan's tale, that implies a child, which to me also implies hide and seek, which is not dangerous.
True.
So or she could be window shopping, and her friends are wondering where she's at. It just doesn't carry it enough for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different ways that could go.
I agree. I think that's a good point. How about voice, character, point of view, or setting? Anybody? I think it's got kind of all of it except setting. Well, setting in the first 2 words, but not in the sentence itself. We know it's Paris. That doesn't tell us too much.
But we don't know the time.
Not at all. Yeah, we have no idea.
It's historical, so it's...
Well, let's go on to another one. How about this one? They shoot the white girl first. Paradise, a 1997 literary novel by Toni Morrison. You've probably seen this sentence before. This one's a pretty famous sentence. So what do you guys think? That's 6 words. It does a ton of work in 6 words. Oh my gosh. Does it hit all 3 qualities?
Say the qualities again.
Huh?
Say the qualities again.
Unusual, evocative, incident-based.
Absolutely, all 3.
In 6 words. Do you want to keep reading?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about those should haves and could haves? Let's look at this, because this is a really good sentence, I personally think. And again, I've never read this book. Does it pose a narrative question or questions?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, you want to know what happens. It's like the narrative question is, well, why? Why did they shoot anybody? And why was it the white girl? And who's going to get shot next? And who's doing the shooting? And why are they shooting? A lot of them implied in that. And then what about establishing a dilemma? You think it establishes a dilemma? Inspires curiosity? Yeah.
Definitely.
Voice.
Yeah.
So how about mood, voice, character, point of view, and setting? There's no setting.
Not sure about the point of view.
Yeah, we don't really know who it is.
It's a little bit of a setting. It's a little bit of a setting because it's apparently some kind of turmoil or some situation in which somebody can shoot somebody. That you know, it's not every place that can happen, and it makes the title seem ironic.
Paradise, yeah. So what the experts said about it is it creates a chilling mood, establishes a matter-of-fact narrative voice, inspires curiosity, and raises a variety of narrative questions. So,
and what if the shooting was with a camera?
There you go.
It's not.
Yeah.
Also, writing it is not about a camera.
Yeah.
The fact that the narrator or the person speaking says they and the white girl implies that they don't know them and the white girl, because otherwise they would, it's less likely for them maybe to refer to the person shooting as they, even if they do know them. But for that person to call them the white girl instead of their name implies that they don't know that person, or
Well,
there's no
it also
connection.
implies that they have to differentiate between colors of people. So that sets your setting right there.
Yeah, doesn't that give us a little bit of a POV here?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, want to go on to the next one, or anybody have anything else to say about this sentence? Okay, I've got just a couple more before we go on to what really not to do. Here's one. We were about to give up and call it a night when somebody dropped the girl off the bridge. Darker Than Amber, a 1966 crime novel by John D. MacDonald. Now, I'm really kind of worried about all these women. They keep doing things to these girls.
They're such handy props.
Okay, this sentence is 19 words.
Happens to a woman, you know, it's like women and children first, or, you know, they killed innocent women and children. So people care about women and children.
So they're going for the heart thing, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So what do you think about the qualities? Remember those qualities that we keep referring to, unusual, evocative, and incident-based? It's an incident, they're
All of
dropping
them.
somebody off a bridge.
Yeah. I love John D. MacDonald anyway, but this is like, you know, the other thing, and I don't know if I'm just a freak, but there's something about that while it's eliciting horror or curiosity and being evocative, it's also humorous, sadly. But there's a tone of the fact that he goes, we were about to give up for the night, and then until, you know, someone drops the body off the bridge. I mean,
now they're going to have paperwork to do. They're not going to get to bed until morning. Yeah, it's going to be a long night.
Right, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, so it does have a little bit of a dark humor aspect potentially, right? So anybody else want to say anything else about this sentence?
I think the words,
Go ahead.
I think the words that they were going to call it a night, because at first I thought they were police and they were going to, their shift was up, but because they call it a night makes me think they were searching for something, they were looking for something, and they were going to give up until somebody dropped the girl off the bridge.
Okay, once again, if you know the author, in this case John D. MacDonald, and Cheryl's read him obviously, automatically I know who's the narrator, because it's a continuing character that Travis McGee, not
That Sandy?
Yeah.
so it's not a cop, and so I automatically know who he is, and I also know that this is kind of a noirish kind of crime novel.
Noir.
Just because well, actually, I've read this book back about 1966, but John D. MacDonald was, you know, one of these guys that was as a matter of fact, I learned more about writing from an essay he wrote once than any writer I'd ever read. And he violated one of his own rules in this by using the word "were." But you know, to me, that's a fascinating opening line, because I'm drawn into the story immediately. Now, does the thing about it being a woman that's being dropped off the bridge? Well, it depends. Is she a dead woman, or does he rescue her, or whatever? There's all sorts of possibility. And it says the girl. Now, yeah,
it's a girl. It's not
a girl.
Yeah, and does he mean girl, or does he mean woman?
Yeah, and you don't know from the first sentence, but it is enough. The question is here again, going back to the original, purpose of this. Would this line keep an editor, an agent, or a reader moving forward and turning pages? And that's really what it's about, because you have to read that first line to get to the second, the third, to the next page, to the second chapter. And I think this one would, if you're especially into that genre, that's a line that would keep you reading, don't you think?
Michelle, what's interesting about this is what Jim said. Now, I have not read this particular book, this particular story, but what's really weird is that what I put in with we were about to give up and call it a night, maybe it's because of the last one with Prologue Paris, but I have this as a group of people on a date. And they're on somebody, and all of a sudden they see somebody dropping a girl off a bridge. So it's fascinating to me, the mind of the reader, how imaginative they can be. And I think I was set up to think this is a date by Prologue Paris.
Different book, different example.
My response is that by knowing John D. McDonnell, I know Travis McGee's not on a date.
Right.
Yeah. Well, see, and yes, exactly. But so a reader comes into a story from a whole bunch of perspectives, and I just looked at the sentence, and that's where I went.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, but by the time you would have gotten to the sentence, you would have looked at the front, probably read the back jacket, already knew the genre, and kind of be in the mindset to know where it's starting, Yeah. Okay, anything else, or should we move on? We good? Okay. Once upon a time, there was a woman who discovered she had turned into the wrong person. Back when we were grown-ups, by Ann Tyler. I love Ann Tyler. 17 words. Would you want to keep reading?
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm sure Daniel wouldn't, right, Daniel?
No, you're mistaken. I think it's... now you're going to tell me, why would you think that?
No, I'm just teasing you. Go ahead. Now tell me why you would keep reading. I'd love to know.
Okay, because I think, well, I can only speak for myself. I've had that another form of the same question, like what if, there's a lot of what ifs in life, and this is a different view of the same thing. So this tells me, and the fact that it's once upon a time makes it a little bit fairy tale like, because she didn't have to put that in there. And so that tells me it's going to be whimsical. So that's interesting to me.
Has anybody actually read this book?
No, I've read Ann Tyler.
What book? Oh, When We Were Grown-Ups. Okay.
Because I haven't either, to have context as to where it goes. But the question is, would you, from that sentence, keep reading? Does it ask those narrative questions? Yeah, you want to know, well, what person did she turn into, and what did she think she should have turned into? Are we talking about psychologically, emotionally? Is she in a place in life where she wasn't expecting to be? Is she suddenly, a high-powered Wall Street attorney, and she really wanted to be an artist? I don't know. What?
Well, it could also be like a fairy tale where she's actually literally turning into someone.
And it could.
Yeah.
I have a question for the men in the group, and for the women as well, actually. This, I think, on a psychological level, would resonate with a lot of women, and perhaps a lot of men would get this too. But does it have a feminine feel to the point that it wouldn't attract men? I'm just curious.
I can answer to start with, okay? First of all, Ann Tyler, she wrote a short story one time. By the time it was over with, I was crying, okay? So I know, and I read one of her novels, and I loved her. She's a terrific writer. It has to do with whether a man is willing to read women. I think it comes down to that, whether he does or doesn't. I mean, I've had male friends that won't read women writers, but I've had women friends who won't read men.
Oh.
So, one of my favorite people I ever knew, she said, well, I will read your book, Jim, but that was it. But she just literally stopped reading men writers.
No.
So you know, it comes down to, it doesn't matter to me whether it's a man or a woman, it's whether the writer can make me feel something.
Well, in terms of the sentence by itself, if we did not know this was Ann Tyler, I'm just curious if with the sentence itself, if that would attract, I guess that's what it's saying. Is it too female a tone to attract men in? That's what I'm wanting to hear, I guess.
Yeah, I'd like to address that.
Okay.
For me, I think men don't tend to be as introspective. And I think women are more introspective. And it's just the way I think things are. So I think a man is more drawn to action, and a woman might be drawn more to psychological or introspective ideas. It's not that it's not an interesting story, and I don't think a man would read a book about a man being that introspective unless it's brief and in a larger context.
Yeah, the first thing I thought of was that it's very much like I think it's Stephen Covey's question. I worked so hard to get where I am, and now I find out I didn't want to be there.
Very thoughtful, Chuck.
But okay, but my question would be though, would a guy read it then if it says once upon a time there was a man who discovered he had turned into the wrong person?
No.
I mean, the thing is that to me it works either way, because it's what we're talking about here is, in a sense, what intrigues me is how the person changed. I think, to me, look at it this way: in any fiction we're writing, isn't it we're most interested in how the character changes throughout, from the beginning of your story until the end?
So what are you saying? Are you saying is that once upon a time there was someone who discovered that they had turned into the wrong person? Might be better?
No, I'm saying that it doesn't matter about gender. It matters only that we look and say this person was something here, and he or she changed. That's the essence of most literature.
Well,
yeah, but this is giving away the story in the beginning. The first line gives away the whole book. I wouldn't read it just for that.
Okay, and the point, that's a good point, Howard. And since we're trying to get to what makes a good opening sentence, and if we're trying to reach the greatest audience possible and not exclude anybody by once upon a time, or I was a woman. If you're trying not to exclude any reader, it makes me question the I know this would draw women, it would draw me for a while, but I just question its effectiveness overall. That's my question, I guess.
I just think the use of the word the phrase once upon a time is so cliche. I think a new author would have a hard time getting this accepted, because that would probably turn off an agent or whatever. I think I'm maybe less inclined to want to read about this book because there's something called the imposter syndrome. And a number of years ago, they said that women found themselves high on a ladder, and they felt like they were imposters. So there's a lot of implications to this. If it's something about that, I might be more interested in reading it, because they feel like they've really become a person that they didn't expect to be, and they may even doubt their own credibility as they move up the corporate.
Well, and I think you're probably closer. I've not read the book either, but I have half a notion you're probably closer to what this story is about than it being a fairy tale. I think it's really about somebody who woke up one day and realized, I'm in a place in my life, how did I get here? This is not who I wanted to be. I think that's probably what this is about. That's what I get from this sentence. But I think everyone's brought up incredibly good points. But the question is, does it hit the marks for a good sentence?
Maybe it could be positive, because I didn't plan to be who I turned out to be. And to me, everything that's happened to me has been positive.
Well, except they use the word wrong.
But wrong is, I guess, the wrong person. I'm not, wrong doesn't have to be negative in my mind. I mean, I'm not that person I thought I would be. I'm the wrong person, but it turned out to be incredible for me. You know, if I was going down the path I thought I was going, I didn't end up on that path.
Okay.
I'm grateful.
Okay.
So we're really I think Once Upon a Time does lead you to think, you know, fantasy, children's books. That's it. Sandy?
Sandy, you have something?
I rather liked Once Upon a Time because of the fairy tale quality. But Once Upon a Time, this tells me there's probably going to be a happy ending if that's going to be the frame of it, and that this is going to be a story about discovery and how this person has changed and so forth and so on. So I rather like Once Upon a Time because I'm a big fan of fairy tales.
There we
But
go.
this is going to be more real than fairy tale. But I thought it was a clever way in.
What's interesting to back.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're the wrong person. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
want to back up Sandy a little bit because this for me, and I could be totally wrong here, feels female psychology. But Once Upon a Time tells me that as little girls, and it's kind of like what Vicki was saying too, as women and girls and children, where we try to plot out where we're trying to go in life, this tells me she started out with who Once Upon a Time tells me she had an image for her life, okay? And that whatever's happened here in her life, she's discovered she's turned into the wrong person, okay? So I agree with Sandy that I'm not put off by Once Upon a Time. I just want to say that.
I'd like to say too that it's meant ironically probably, because the whole idea of women going into the happy ever after is like the fairy tale of your own life, which Tammy Beveridge is just pointing out on the chat that it's probably meant to be ironic. And I think that it is that way. I read the detail page while we were talking to find out what the book was about. And it's about a 53-year-old woman who's been a very good housewife. And all of a sudden she looks around and thinks, was this what my dream was?
That's pretty much the image I got from the first sentence, and I hadn't read
from what you said, Michelle, you got it.
Yeah.
I'd like for you to look at the title and the Once Upon a Time and how they fit together back when we were grown up. And Once Upon a Time, it fits. It fits there. So, you know, I'm a fan with the beginning. Unlike Howard, I don't think this tells us everything. It doesn't tell us what she was to begin with. It doesn't tell us where she winds up. So,
but does it get you to read the next sentence and the next sentence and the next sentence?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So is it effective overall as an opening for certain readers? Would it be an effective opening? Obviously it was. It's a published.
Absolutely. I wish I had written it.
Okay, so let's move on because I do want to get
I'd just like to say, I think a lot of this depends on, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think a lot of this depends on genre and if I set out to read that type of book. Because even going back to the one with Simon and Strawberry Fields, if I set out to read a domestic thriller, I would definitely love that opening and it would be perfect. If I set out to read a book like this one, this opening would be perfect. However, I don't really set out to read.
Uh-oh.
We're losing her.
Does matter with opening lines.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, cool. I think you're dead on. Absolutely. All right, I'm going to do one example of a bad opening. Okay, so wait for it. You ready? Has anyone not ever seen this opening? I want to know if anyone's never seen It Was a Dark and Stormy Night. Anybody? Okay, so now, no fair Googling. No fair Googling here. I want to know if anyone can tell me who wrote this book and what the name of the book was that started It Was a Dark and Stormy Night. Can anybody here? No fair Googling. I had to Google it because I didn't know.
I know the author.
Yeah,
okay.
he's
Go ahead.
famous.
Who's the author?
Bulward.
You almost got it. Bulwer Lytton.
Bulwer Lytton got reversed.
Edward Bulwer, yeah, Bulwer Lytton wrote this in 1830.
Now
Does anyone know?
he wrote Last Days of Pompeii, but that's not from this book. This book's name is a character's name.
Anybody know offhand without Googling? Can you see, Jim, if anybody's got their hand raised or waving frantically or anything?
No, nobody says.
See, this tells you that it's pretty unmemorable. It was called Paul Clifford. Probably not the best title of a novel.
Yawn.
So there are so many things wrong with this sentence. Does anyone want to take a crack at it? What's wrong with this sentence? Where do we start? Anyone?
It.
Yeah, start with it.
Start with it.
Yeah. And maybe you disagree. Maybe for whatever reason you think it is a phenomenal opening
I
sentence.
disagree. I will stand to my dying day that when this was written in the 1800s, probably a dramatic sentence. And I know they have the contest for the worst, the Dark and Stormy Night contest for, the worst thing ever. I just totally disagree. I love this sentence. I would have used it myself if it had never been used, but it now is so mocked. But I'm on the opposite side of the fence.
Okay. Anybody else with Cheryl on that, by the way? By the way, Cheryl, you're not alone, and I've got a reference to that. But
thank you.
Alone. But is there anybody else out there that thinks that this is not a horrible sentence, that it's a great sentence for opening? Anybody else but Cheryl?
I wouldn't say horrible, but it's kind of vague. I think there's no action in it. If he started with, the rain was pounding like elephant feet, or something like that, would be a little more.
Okay, well, let's go through our list. Unusual, evocative, or incident-based. Is there an incident happening here?
Yeah. It's a storm. Yeah.
I think the worst thing is its familiarity. I mean, you can't be using an opening line that's used a lot, so it's not unique.
Well, and is it an unusual line or an evocative line? It doesn't really do much in the way of forwarding plot, story, character. It's just kind of a setting thing, really.
No, but it's a famous line.
Very famous. Very famous. Probably one of the most quoted first lines of any novel in history.
And it was original when he wrote it. I have to say that. Like, dead as a doornail was invented by Shakespeare. And if you use it now, it's a cliche.
Almost everything he wrote now is a cliche.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not much different than Once Upon a Time, really.
Yeah.
So I personally, I think it contains two things, and that's setting and mood. For me personally, mood, of course, is something that you would like to inject into first sentence. Setting is one you want to avoid. The it, someone brought that up. It's also a passive voice. It was. So there's some things there. Anybody else have anything else?
It's redundant. It's redundant. It's
Dark and night.
Dark.
Okay. Well, here's an interesting juxtaposition of information. Okay. Writer's Digest described this sentence in their as this is quote, the literary poster child of bad story starters. Okay. While the American Book Review ranked it number 22 on its best first lines from novels list ever. Number 22 on the best first lines. So Cheryl, see, you've been vindicated. Well, either way, the bottom line is, and a couple people brought this up, for 180 years, it's probably one of the most remembered lines. People that don't even read books have heard this, and it's not just because of Snoopy, but probably in no small part thanks to Snoopy. So it did its job. I mean, in 180 years, if someone's quoting the first line from my novel, I'd consider that a win, wouldn't you? So it worked even though it didn't work. Okay, so let's go on.
I got a couple of people here that want to say something. Chuck,
Okay.
Did you want to say something? No.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was saying I use it once a year when I get a birthday card from my daughter, because it was a dark and stormy night the night she was born. And I was flying from Atlanta to Chicago to get to the hospital in time to witness the birth. And so it was, it's kind of an inside joke, and I use it once a year.
I think that's fabulous. That is
Dan.
fabulous.
Dan?
Yeah, no, I already spoke. I forgot to put my hand down.
Oh.
Okay, so now we're going to go on to your guys' sentences. So raise your hand, start putting your hand raise icon up now if you've got a sentence, an opening you would like to share. And, you know, just so you know, I have a cartoon here, right? Let's hear another suggestion besides Moby Dick. Now, if you picked Moby Dick, you can still say it, but that's probably one of the ones people use the most, so I had to throw that in there.
Okay, Lynn.
I'm sorry, this is for the bad one, right?
For anything you want to do. This is open season now. And there are your things that we can now define whether it's good or bad.
Oh, there will be no question. This is so horrible. I'm so excited about bringing it. Okay, ready? This is like, it's actually about 3 or 4 lines, but bear with me. Okay, this is the beginning, chapter 1, opening chapter. Good afternoon. This will be our first boarding call for United Airlines Flight 1126, nonstop from Houston to Chicago O'Hare. We'll begin boarding shortly, ladies and gentlemen, so please have your boarding passes ready. That's it. That's the beginning of the book.
Does anybody think that's a good?
Yeah, you'll never look. It was obscure. Never mind. Let me see. It was Out of the Box Awakening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a reason why people probably didn't hear. Does anyone think that's a great opening?
No,
Okay.
you know what? I must be standing out in left field somewhere by myself with some kind of a weirdo brain. But what's really weird is it's so bad, it intrigues me. It was why he's opening it with an airplane announcement.
Cheryl, I got to say this because I wanted to be able to explain why I think it's bad. And if Michelle, if you could
please
have a second.
Absolutely.
Because if you start a whole book with something what Bill calls fartless, you know, it has no interest at all. It's plain, it's normal. It's what we all go through. It's an everyday, plain old situation that doesn't say anything. If you start your book with that, then your authority as an author is in question from the very beginning. And I know that for the rest of the book, I'm going to see duds like that because she didn't know any better than to start a book that way. So
is that a published book?
Yes, the authority of the author is in question, in my mind.
But see, that's what, it's so bad. I absolutely agree with you with what it is. But I thought, you know, this is either a very skilled writer. It would cause me to it's either a very skilled, sarcastic, ironic writer that's taking something so horrible. I would want to know in the next few sentences or the next maybe couple pages.
You would.
Very
okay,
writer.
I got several people here that have their hands up.
Okay.
Greg, you have yours up. Greg?
Yes.
Okay, you're on.
If, as they say, the threat of the hangman's noose has a powerful way of focusing one's attention, the same can be said of pregnancy.
Okay, what's that from?
That's from A Reporter's Life by Walter Cronkite.
Oh, interesting.
And I've read the book and it's a good one.
Anyone want to comment on, we don't have to go into extreme detail, but looking at all of the different elements here, anybody want to make a comment on that, or should we move on to the next one?
Got a lot of people.
Yeah, got several people here. Let's go on to the next one.
It was definitely unusual.
Dennis.
Yeah.
I have two first lines. The first one is from The One Thing. It's a nonfiction book, and it talks about focusing in on one item. And it begins on June 7th, 1991. The Earth moved for 112 minutes. Not really. It felt that way, but it felt that way. And he's talking about the movie City Slickers and how it changed his life, and it set it up. And then I have another one. I don't know if you want to talk about that one first, or you want me to share the next one?
Go with the next one.
Okay, here's the next one. This one is by from Isaiah's daughter, and it's a novel of prophets and kings, and it begins, "My friend Yerda said to be brave, but why? Brave or scared, we kept marching."
Brave or scared, we said more. Okay. Anybody? Okay. Melody, you have one. Melody, you're muted. You have to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, can.
Okay, I just have one. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. That's from a very, very, very famous book. Anyone recognize it?
God, I've read it back.
1984.
Wow, Dennis. Okay.
Yeah. Very good, Dennis.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought it violates, you know, the weather report. But then right after the weather report, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13, and of course that grabbed me totally. And 1984, George Orwell. I'm going to go dig that book out somewhere in my house and read it, because I don't remember that as an opening line from so many years ago. But it certainly kept me, it intrigued me, even though it started with Jim, and horrible weather report. But I guess not everybody remembered, including myself, that was the opening line, but it certainly would have pulled me in, despite the fact that, you know, it was the weather report. And Sandy's bored to death.
No.
Oh, well, you were yawning. Okay.
No, I was clearing my throat. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay,
Anyway,
Sandy, you're next. You have one.
Nadia Gauman died in my arms. Seconds after I left Club George, I heard gunshots, screams, squealing tires from the alley behind the building. And then there's more to the paragraph. But this is Sarah Paretsky in Body Work. I like the B.I. Warshawski stories.
Okay.
Anybody want to comment on that? Okay, somebody else?
Sandy, is that good or bad for you, Sandy?
Oh, it's good for me.
Okay.
Works for Sandy.
Yeah, good for me, or I wouldn't have bought the book.
Okay. Next is Ellen.
So I think this is interesting because I like the first line. I don't like the second line. So the first line is, and this harks back to the Ann Tyler opening line, "I am living someone else's life." So, and this is from Tales of a Female Nomad by Rita Gelman. So I am living someone else's life. And then the next line is, "It's a good life," which immediately deflates me. It's like, well, so what's the problem?
Okay, that's terrific. All right, Lynn, you have one.
Okay, this is a good one. On our wedding day, my fiance, James, arrived at the church in a casket.
Ouch.
Ooh.
That one's depressing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that from?
It's called Everything We Keep, and it's about a couple of firefighters who were supposed to get married, and hers didn't make it. Her fiance didn't make it.
Very good.
Wow.
Okay,
I would say I would say that one also has a shock value that is relevant to the plot line. That's a shocking, I think, opening.
Very much so.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, I have one. I often believe that you ought to start with a scene, that you ought to go right into it. But my favorite opening line is not like that at all. It's from a book by L.P. Hartley that probably nobody's ever read, called Go-Between. But sometimes somebody just opens with a line that just catches you because it says so much about yourself. and his opening line was, "The past is a foreign country. They do things differently there." And I've always found that the older you get, I think, and the more memories play a part in your life, the more those two lines, and that's the opening line or two lines of the book, the more those mean the older I get. And it also plays around with the idea of what is real and what is illusion, which is also one of my I've always found fascinating in literature. So to me, that's a perfect opening line, but yet it has nothing to do with establishing a dilemma or anything else, or point of view even. But for me, that's been my all-time favorite line.
Is it a good book, Jim?
Yes, it's very good. It's
Okay.
It has to do with this grown man who's recalling an incident from his childhood, where he becomes a go-between between two lovers, and it's magnificent. And they actually made a movie of it. That's just beautiful film that they also made, and they open with that line in the movie. So yes, it's a terrific book, terrific movie.
No, it is a good opening line. Looks like we have one more person, Lynette,
Yes.
right?
Lynette, yes. Yeah.
Or is it Kat?
I think it's Catherine.
Oh. Okay. I'm sorry. Asked to unmute. Lynette, okay, good. She's there now.
Yeah, it's Lynette this time.
Oh, hi, Lynette.
And
hi, Lynette.
Hi. I have two to share. The first one is from The Air Affair by Jasper Fforde. And if you guys haven't read him, he's so much fun because he has all these subtle little nods to writers throughout his book and stuff. So the line goes like this: "My father had a face that could stop a clock." And as you read this book, you'll find out that has double meaning. So I think it's a great opening line. The second one is from Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. "It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife."
I think it's a great line. Great line.
And I think it was fun when you guys were talking earlier about the line that the woman had turned into a person that she didn't want to be, and that it wouldn't appeal to men. I recently heard a conversation, a book discussion on Pride and Prejudice about how it's mostly appeals to women. But the guy that they were talking to, he said it took him 3 times to read Pride and Prejudice at 3 different points in his life before he could appreciate it, because he read it in high school as a required reading, and he didn't get it. He read it again in college, and it was like, it was again for a school assignment. And then he read it later in his 30s, and he totally got it.
How
So I think sometimes it's what stage in life we're in too, whether or not a book speaks to us.
True. And I know Kat had a couple too, right?
She did. Let's see. Let me get her. Here, Kat. She's running back in here real quick. There.
I just say, I
my
read
choices-
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I read Pride and Prejudice as a young man in college, and a female teacher, and it was so, it just did not attract me. But then when I saw the movies later on, loved them.
Yeah.
Good stories.
Yeah, fabulous stories.
Okay, Kat.
Okay, so my choices, my first one was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, J.K. Rowling. And the first line of that is, "Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much."
There's a question there.
Definitely has a voice there, doesn't it? Definitely
Yeah.
has a voice.
Definitely. And the second one is from The Princess Bride by William Goldman.
My favorite book of all time.
It's fantastic. This is my favorite book in all the world, though I have never read it.
Yep.
Great.
Great
I love
open-
that one because it establishes the narrator so quick. So, yeah.
Good choices.
All right. So is there anybody else wanting to share?
Anybody else?
If not, then I'm going to leave you with this on my presentation. can get there. Ah, won't go. Seriously? There.
Oh.
Writing killer opening lines. So this is what you need to do is go out and write killer opening lines. If we wrote cartoons, everything you need to know about this story is right there. Is it not?
Yeah.
Everything about both characters, about what's going to happen. So anyway, I wanted to leave that with you and stop the share so we can go back to that. I hope you guys got something out of this. I know I did in researching and putting it together.
Well,
I'm going to mute people.
Did a great job, Michelle, as always.
Sorry about the technical difficulties at the beginning.
Oh, don't worry about that. It turned out fine in the end. That's what counts, right?
Yep.
So it
Thanks,
was a
Michelle.
great meeting. I will see everyone again in August for the poetry reads. Howard and I will put together a little video we'll send out to you soon, okay? And other than that, that's it. And everybody have a good month, and we'll see you then.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Yes,
Very
thank you.
good. Enjoyed
Terrific.
it. Fun.
It was
Good,
terrific,
good.
Michelle.
Thank you.